To Professor Lenkabula, the Programs Director, allow me to recognize and greet, firstly, the Acting Vice-Chancellor, Professor Staden, and Rector, of course, the host Dean, Professor Jita, who I suppose is very excited to see his students of many years pass through. I also want to recognize and greet the university executive and the academia and the staff. And I think more importantly, the graduandees. I'm quite aware that the 500 plus, now to be former students of the University of Free State, are not the only ones graduating today. Joining them are their parents. Because when it happens that way, graduations become a big source of joy amongst parents. I want to thank the university for asking me in some way to join the staff to send off students who have come to the university to study. And I also want to welcome that very opportunity to send off these people back to the world to contribute in the well-being of our fellow South Africans and the prosperity of our country. Program Director, let me properly introduce myself by adding one or two lines on who the National Education Collaboration Trust is, the organization that I head at the moment. In 2012, August, this country adopted the National Development Plan. As we have seen before, there are plans that this country has adopted, and some of the plans and the intentions that are in those plans were actually left unattended, particularly those that required government, business, labor, civil society to come together to see to their implementation. This time around, a group of people representing government, business, labor, and civil society came together to agree to set up a structure in the form of the National Education Collaboration Trust to take care of the implementation of Chapter 9 of the National Development Plan, whose focus is education and training. The focus of the National Education Trust is to work with all concerned to improve the work of education around 6 thematic areas, starting with a deep and complex but necessary area of intervention we chose to call teacher professionalization. This is a concept I need not to explain or explicate any further to a South African who at one stage would have been part of the education system or send their children to our education system. It's a much needed area of improvement. The second thematic area is the promotion of courageous and effective leadership, right from the classroom to the highest level of the system, be that the office of the Director General or the minister concerned. The third is building the capacity of the state to deliver improved quality education. The fourth is improving the resourcing of our education system. Fifth is improving community and parent involvement, an area that our education system or the country as a whole take for granted. I will haste to say that most of the good results in our education system are a result of how the household comes into partnership with schools to support the education of their children. The last but not least, it's an area we chose to coin learner welfare. Those who are in education, and of course those who are graduating today, and their respective lecturers, will know how important it is for learners to be well fed, for learners to be psychologically prepared in order for them to learn optimally. The National Education Collaboration Trust was thus founded in July 2013, and we've recently celebrated our 5-year mark, at which point we had achieved a target of working with about 70% of the schools in the country, which is in the north of 15,000 schools out of the 25,000 schools or so that we have. Today is not the time for me to talk about the National Education Collaboration Trust. Today, it's the time for me to use what we have observed and learned through the National Education Collaboration Trust as a basis on which to invite new teachers into the field of teaching and new actors into the education sector. We are indeed gathered here to witness the passing of the many fresh teachers that we've recently produced, but also the refreshed educationists who may have come back for more knowledge from the university. So, Vice-Chancellor, I want to say that I was the subject of the same occurrence some 25 or 26 years ago. So I too was wearing the hood and whatever not you are wearing today. And there are two fond memories that do not leave me of that day. The first is that I was tapped on the head by the icon, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, who was then the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the North. What an excitement, and how timely was my graduation. The tapping being an act of conferring a degree in the same field that you are graduating in today. That is to become a teacher. So the second memory, it's actually when Mandela shared a joke, or rather, what later on proved to be a joke, because only the academia laughed at the joke, and none of us who were graduating could catch the joke. The unfortunate part is that I don't remember the content of the joke, but it worries me that none of us could, catch the joke. But I must say that when I graduated, I was ill-prepared for what I later saw. In my journey of looking for a job, in my journey of finding space in a staff room, in the classroom itself, in the search for and identity, in finding identity vis-a-vis the ethos of the school, and in the teaching profession, at large, not least in finding an incentive for me to wake up every day and look forward to another teaching day. And I therefore think that it is appropriate for me to reflect on some of the things that you are going to see, not with a reason to scare you, but rather with a reason to help you to better prepare to engage with the real life of teaching. I think you'll meet the same challenges, and you'll need to be armed with very strong personalities to stay the professional course and to achieve the desired impact and to grow in the process. So I have therefore chose to theme my talk today as the challenges of teaching the nation and staying the course. Indeed, the challenges are multi-layered, they are multi-phased, they are multi-textured, they are mostly dependent on the spectacles that the observer wears. And many are the spectacles that you'll have to choose from. So I move from the premise that as South Africans, we should have the same baseline, share the same vision and understanding of where we want to take this country to. I am not, rather, for a minute proposing a homogeneous society, but I have serious, I must say, serious problems with those who deliberately put on disseminate or share lenses that produce short-sightedness or that showed skewed pictures, particularly if they are enlightened people. So all I'm saying is that you will meet a lot of those people whose main concern and business is to make as many South Africans share or wear glasses that are short-sighted. That is perhaps the first challenge that you're going to meet. You are going to walk into a sector where everyone is an expert simply because they've once been in a classroom or their children go to school. They have lots of advices, they know better than you do, even though you've spent many years studying the field of education. You're going into a sector where the leaders, researchers have no solutions, but offer a lot of criticisms. They criticize learners for not learning. They criticize learners for being uneducable, and their teachers for being incompetent. So the unfortunate part of being a teacher is that all the social ills from the household and the community come into the school, and it's the teacher who has to deal with them. So it's not an easy way, in the same way that we cannot argue that low progression rates and graduation rates at universities are entirely the result of inputs into the universities, that is from the basic schooling system. But simply investing time to blame and degrade lecturers and the university system to the point that staff and students lose their confidence will not solve the problem other than exacerbate it. And the logic that I'm putting here, or the proposal that I'm putting here, is that South Africans have spent a lot of time and effort criticizing themselves and in fact getting to a point where the learners and the teachers and the entire system stop to believe in themselves. And I think it's one of the big mistakes that we're making to pull down the education system. Our education system has challenges, no doubt, but not the worst of the worst in the world. And there are teachers and officials who still give their all to see improvements and go all out of their way to ensure that our learners learn in schools.